In October 1962, Jensen Motors unveiled a sports car that would become one of the most divisive vehicles of the decade. The Jensen CV8 promised thundering American V8 performance wrapped in British craftsmanship. But there was a problem. The car's face looked unfinished, awkward, and according to some observers, like a gigantic, crouching, four-eyed cat. This was a vehicle that could embarrass far prettier rivals in a straight line, yet it sparked arguments wherever it appeared. The Jensen CV8 became living proof that speed and beauty do not always arrive in the same package. The controversy started with a last-minute design disaster. Eric Neal, the designer, had originally created the CV8 with covered headlamps. Sleek Perspex covers would flow seamlessly over the quad headlights, creating smooth aerodynamic lines similar to the Ferrari 275 GTB and Jaguar E-Type Series 2. But Jensen got nervous about the American market. Worried that the covers might reduce headlamp effectiveness or violate United States lighting regulations, they made a fateful decision late in development: delete the covers. The timing of this choice created the problem. It came so late that redesigning the fender shape was impossible. The headlights now sat exposed in recessed pods that were never meant to be seen uncovered. The result looked unfinished and strange. Four headlights canted at an angle, leaning back into the fenders, staring out from deep recesses. Early Mark I and Mark II models made things worse by using different-sized headlamps, adding to the ungainly appearance. Opinions split sharply. Some found the slanted treatment distinctive. Most found it disturbing. Even designer Eric Neal was never happy with the decision, and some owners have since retrofitted Perspex covers to restore the car's original intended look. The controversial styling extended beyond the headlights. The fiberglass bodywork with aluminum door skins created somewhat bulbous proportions. It lacked the elegant lines of Italian contemporaries and the aggressive stance of American muscle cars. The CV8 looked awkward from almost any angle, but beneath that divisive exterior sat serious engineering and devastating performance. The name CV8 denoted center tube chassis with V8 power. Jensen redesigned the chassis to feature longitudinal tubes, creating a frame that was both stronger and lighter than the outgoing 541 series. The twin-tube frame was set in from the perimeter of the car, which combined with the fiberglass body, contributed to surprisingly high survival rates. More importantly, the engine was set entirely behind the front axle line, making the CV8 technically a front mid-engined car. This weight distribution gave better handling than the layout might suggest. Under the hood sat thundering Chrysler big block V8 engines. Early models used a 361 cubic inch V8, but from 1964 onward, Jensen upgraded to the more powerful 383 cubic inch engine, producing 330 horsepower. In total, 128 cars received the 361 cubic inch motor, while 372 got the 383 cubic inch power plant. Most came with a 3-speed Chrysler TorqueFlite automatic transmission, though 9 cars received 4-speed manual gearboxes for enthusiasts seeking greater driver involvement. The performance figures silenced critics who mocked the appearance. The Mark II variant with the 383 cubic inch engine achieved a top speed of 136 miles per hour, or 219 kilometers per hour. More impressively, it could sprint from 0 to 60 miles per hour in just 6.7 seconds and cover the standing quarter mile in 14.6 seconds. Period road tests noted that the quarter-mile time was the quickest yet measured for any four-seater. The speed at the end of the quarter exceeded 90 miles per hour. The later 6.3-liter engine delivered even more vivid performance, reaching 110 miles per hour in just 22.4 seconds. The Jensen CV8 remains an automotive paradox. Its styling, particularly those infamous exposed slanted quad headlights, earned it a place among the most controversial-looking sports cars ever produced. Yet beneath that divisive exterior lay genuine performance that could humble far more aesthetically pleasing rivals. For those who could see past the awkward appearance, the CV8 offered thundering American V8 power, genuine grand touring comfort for four, and acceleration that placed it at the pinnacle of 1960s performance. In 1997, a small Georgia company unveiled a sports car that represented cutting-edge aluminum construction, Mustang Cobra power, and styling that divided opinion as sharply as any vehicle of the decade. The Panoz AIV Roadster could sprint from 0 to 60 miles per hour in 4.3 seconds and embarrass cars costing twice as much around most American racetracks. But its stubby, chunky, balloon-fendered appearance made some observers wonder if they were looking at a kit car rather than a $65,000 boutique sports car. This was America's first aluminum-intensive vehicle, designed by the man who would later create the Volkswagen New Beetle and Audi TT, yet it became one of America's most forgotten performance cars. The Panoz story begins not in Detroit's design studios, but in the pharmaceutical industry. Don Panoz made his fortune developing innovative drug delivery systems, but motor racing was his far greater passion. Together with his son, Dan Panoz, Don established Panoz Auto Development Company in Georgia in the early 1990s. The family empire would eventually grow to include ownership of the American Le Mans Series, Road Atlanta, Sebring International Raceway, Mosport International Raceway, and the International Motorsports Association. Don Panoz moved his son's humble streetcar business into a full-effort attack on the 24 Hours of Le Mans, fielding the uniquely front-engined Panoz Esperante GTR1 prototype in IMSA racing. The first Panoz Roadster launched in 1992. Panoz had purchased the rights to a frame designed by Frank Costin, the legendary engineer who had worked on everything from the de Havilland Mosquito to various racing cars. This frame had been used in a defunct Irish sports car called the TMC Costin, which had produced fewer than 40 cars before the company folded in 1987. However, the Costin chassis was never actually used in production Panoz Roadsters. Instead, the early cars featured a TIG welded stainless steel tubing frame. The original Roadster was powered by a Ford 5.0-liter Windsor V8, producing between 205 and 225 horsepower, utilizing Ford Mustang running gear throughout, including the solid rear axle and independent front suspension, mated to a Borg-Warner T5 manual 5-speed transmission. The styling of these early cars was described as just plain ugly, competent, but ungainly. This criticism prompted Panoz to hire a new designer for the next generation. Between 1992 and 1995, exactly 44 first-generation Panoz Roadsters were produced, making these early cars exceptionally rare. For the next iteration, Panoz made a crucial hire, Freeman Thomas, fresh off a stint as a senior designer at Porsche. This was the same Freeman Thomas who would later design the revolutionary Volkswagen New Beetle and the first-generation Audi TT, both of which became automotive icons. Dan Panoz gave Thomas a specific brief: create a body that reflected an American-European cross, something with all the right bulges and curves confirming the big American V8 heritage, while also speaking to its European roots and track-focused grip and handling ability. Thomas delivered a design that deliberately evoked the Shelby Cobra, with rear haunches that screamed 427 Cobra influence, and an overall aesthetic reminiscent of the AC Ace from certain angles, perhaps intentionally channeling Carroll Shelby's famous hot rodding of the British AC. The result was styling that some praised as alluring retro looks, while others condemned as stubby, chunky, and kit car-like. The redesigned Roadster, launched in 1997, was not just about new styling. Panoz dubbed it the AIV, Aluminum Intensive Vehicle, because approximately 70% of the car's structure utilized aluminum. This made it the first American-built aluminum-intensive vehicle, predating many of the aluminum sports cars that would follow. The AIV featured an extruded aluminum space frame with a central backbone construction. Special adhesives were used to attach the frame and body panels, representing cutting-edge manufacturing techniques for the era. This extensive use of lightweight aluminum alloys resulted in a remarkably low curb weight of just 2,570 pounds, extraordinary for a car equipped with air conditioning, leather interior, and other creature comforts. However, this advanced construction came at a cost in manufacturing complexity. Each AIV required at least 350 hours of labor to build, explaining the car's limited production numbers and premium pricing. Between 1996 and 2000, Panoz produced 176 AIV Roadsters plus 6 prototypes, making it even rarer than its predecessor. Under the hood sat the 1996 Mustang SVT Cobra's all-aluminum 4.6-liter DOHC 32-valve V8, producing 305 horsepower and 300 foot-pounds of torque, a 100 horsepower increase over the previous Roadster model. The parts sharing with the Mustang Cobra was extensive and clever. Panoz utilized the entire engine and transmission, the 13-inch vented twin-piston front brakes and 10-inch vented single-piston rear brakes, the instrument cluster, air conditioning system, heating core and system, power steering rack, wiring harness, ECU, and numerous other small components. The suspension received significant upgrades as well. The old solid rear axle from the Mustang was replaced with an independent rear suspension, sourced from a 1990s Thunderbird. The AIV featured new independent suspension all the way around, with a wider track, bigger brakes, larger wheels and tires, and adjustable coil over shocks. Whatever debates raged about the AIV's appearance, the performance figures were indisputable. The lightweight Roadster could sprint from 0 to 60 miles per hour in just 4.3 seconds, cover the quarter mile in 13.5 seconds, and reach a top speed of 140 miles per hour. These figures made it one of the fastest accelerating American production cars of its time. More impressively, the Panoz AIV Roadster was one of the quickest production cars in the United States, around most racing circuits in the country. The combination of low weight, sophisticated aluminum construction, independent suspension, and Mustang Cobra power created a genuinely formidable track weapon that could embarrass cars costing twice as much. All this performance came at a price. The low-volume Panoz AIV cost approximately $65,000 when new, positioning it as a premium boutique sports car, competing against established European rivals. The interior featured saddle leather upholstery, a leather-bound 3-spoke steering wheel, wood veneers on the center console and gauge cluster, and functional air conditioning. However, critics described the interior as awkwardly ugly with fit and finish issues that disappointed those who encountered the car in person. One recurring theme in reviews was that the car was nice to read about or watch in videos, very disappointing in person. Despite its advanced engineering, impressive performance, and connections to motorsport royalty through the Panoz family's racing operations, the AIV Roadster has become one of America's most forgotten sports cars. Its limited production of just 176 examples over 4 years ensured it never achieved mainstream recognition. The styling, which some praised as unique retro-modern design and others dismissed as awkward and kit car-like, prevented it from achieving the iconic status of the Shelby Cobra it clearly sought to emulate. Yet for those who appreciated engineering innovation over badge prestige, the Panoz AIV represented something genuinely special. At the 1959 New York Motor Show, attendees swiftly and unofficially voted the Daimler SP250 the ugliest car at the event. This British sports car had arrived with high hopes, featuring a fiberglass body with distinctive tail fins, a 2.5-liter hemispherical head V8 engine, and a top speed exceeding 120 miles per hour. But observers compared its front end to a drooping catfish mouth, described it as Edsel class ugly, and wondered what British designers were thinking. Only 2,654 were built between 1959 and 1964, yet this oddball roadster found an unlikely second career as a high-speed police pursuit vehicle, chasing down cafe racers on London's streets at 130 miles per hour. The Daimler SP250 started life with a different name entirely. When the car debuted in April 1959 at the New York Motor Show, it wore the name Daimler Dart, a name that seemed appropriately sporty and American-friendly for a British car aimed squarely at the lucrative United States market. However, Chrysler's Dodge division had other ideas. They owned the trademark for the Dart model name and wasted no time ordering Daimler to cease using it under threat of legal action. Caught flat-footed with insufficient time to develop a proper marketing name, Daimler took the pragmatic, if uninspired, approach of simply using the car's internal project designation, SP250. The name stuck, though enthusiasts and owners still frequently refer to the car as the Dart. The name change proved to be the least of the SP250's problems at that New York show. The car's styling attracted immediate and overwhelmingly negative attention, earning it the unofficial title of Ugliest Car in Show, a devastating reception for a vehicle that represented Daimler's hopes for American market success. The SP250's troubled styling resulted from the collaboration between two men with backgrounds in motorcycles rather than automotive design. Edward Turner, the legendary designer of the famous Triumph parallel twin motorcycle engine, led the project. Turner had proven engineering brilliance but questionable abilities as a stylist. Turner brought in Jack Wicks, another motorcycle industry veteran, to pen the car's bodywork. Wicks, charged with designing both the sports car's body and its new V8 engine, created what he believed would appeal to American buyers: outrageous tail-finned styling that channeled the chrome-laden excess of 1950s Detroit. Unfortunately, Wicks had badly misjudged the American market's evolving tastes. By 1959, the United States market was already growing tired of tail fins and excessive chrome. The design that Wicks thought would attract American buyers instead repelled them. Perhaps a more typically understated European design would have found greater success. The resulting appearance attracted brutal criticism. Contemporary. Observers described it variously as having a droopy mouth, resembling a catfish, displaying ichthyoid appearance, which means fish-like, and being Edsel-class ugly. One particularly harsh assessment declared the Roadster to most eyes almost unbelievably ugly. The colonial press were less impressed by its ichthyoid appearance, suggesting the styling issues transcended cultural boundaries. The styling featured pure 1950s American influences: rear fins, abundant chrome trim, and swooping lines that might have looked contemporary on a 1957 Cadillac, but appeared dated and awkward on a 1959 British sports car. The front end, with its distinctive grille, was compared to everything from a drooping mouth to a catfish's face, comparisons that Daimler's marketing department must have found less than encouraging. The SP250 represented Daimler's first attempt at fiberglass body construction, an experiment driven more by economics than engineering preference. The decision was made to construct the shell from fiberglass in a bid to cut down on production costs. £16,000 for fiberglass tooling compared to £120,000 for steel stamping dies. This cost-saving measure came with severe consequences. Due to inexperience with fiberglass construction, Daimler created a chassis that was far too flexible to properly support the body. The original A-spec model suffered from alarming chassis flex that led to numerous build quality problems, poor handling characteristics, and an unnerving propensity for doors to fly open when cornering hard, hardly confidence-inspiring behavior in a sports car. The chassis flex was so severe that scuttle shake, vibration, and movement in the dashboard and windscreen frame area became a defining characteristic of early SP250s. Contemporary road testers noted the unsettling flexibility, and owners learned to approach corners with appropriate caution. When Jaguar cars purchased Daimler in 1960, they were immediately concerned about the chassis problems. Jaguar Engineering brought out the revised B-Spec version in April 1961 with critical improvements, extra outriggers added to the chassis, and a strengthening hoop mounted between the A-posts. These modifications significantly reduced the flex and improved handling, though they could not entirely eliminate the structural compromises of the original design. The final C-Spec version, introduced in April 1963, focused less on structural improvements and more on creature comforts, adding a trickle charger socket, heater demister unit, and cigarette lighter as standard equipment. While the SP250's styling and structure proved problematic, Edward Turner's engine design represented a genuine triumph. Turner, who had created legendary motorcycle engines for Triumph, applied his engineering brilliance to designing a compact, lightweight V8, specifically for the sports car. The 2.5-liter V8 featured an iron block with aluminum alloy cylinder heads, utilizing a domed hemispheric combustion chamber design, commonly known as a Hemi. This configuration allowed for excellent breathing and power production. The overhead valve design used a single central camshaft that operated the valves through short push rods with double heavy-duty valve springs. The hemispherical heads allowed for larger valves and more efficient combustion than conventional designs. With a compression ratio of 8.2 to 1 and fed by twin SU carburetors, the Turner V8 produced 140 horsepower at 5,800 revolutions per minute. The stiff 5-main bearing crankshaft was dynamically balanced, contributing to smooth operation and reliability that proved crucial for the car's police service. Despite its aesthetic challenges and structural compromises, the SP250 delivered genuine performance. Weighing approximately 2,910 pounds, the lightweight fiberglass body helped the Turner V8 propel the car with authority. Contemporary road testers recorded top speeds in excess of 120 miles per hour, with some police specification examples achieving 130 miles per hour, extraordinary performance for a British sports car of the era. At a time when other top performance offerings from British brands, such as Triumph, could barely breach the 100 miles per hour barrier, the Daimler's velocity was a revelation. Acceleration matched the top speed credentials. The SP250 managed 0 to 60 miles per hour in just under 9 seconds, quick for the period, and competitive with far more expensive sports cars. The combination of 4-wheel Girling disc brakes, independent front suspension, and the responsive V8 created a genuinely fast car, even if the chassis flex compromised the handling. Fuel consumption was reasonable at 27.4 miles per imperial gallon, which is 22.8 miles per United States gallon, or 10.3 liters per 100 kilometers, respectable for a V8 sports car capable of 120 miles per hour. The SP250 found its most successful application not in showrooms, but in police service. Between 26 and 30 black SP250s were purchased by the British Metropolitan Police in London for the traffic department. These police specification cars were tasked with catching speeders, particularly the cafe racers who terrorized London's streets on high-performance motorcycles. The SP250's 130 miles per hour top speed made it ideal for this role. Traffic police in Bristol, Cambridge, Liverpool, Manchester, Southend, and Surrey also deployed SP250s for speed enforcement, as did police forces in Australia and New Zealand. After the opening of the first section of the M1 motorway in 1959, the Bedfordshire Police used the SP250 for motorway patrol prior to the arrival of the 70 miles per hour speed limit in 1965. Interestingly, the police cars utilized the optional Borg-Warner Model 8 3-speed automatic transmission rather than the standard manual gearbox. The Metropolitan Police found the automatic superior for town work and high-speed chases and discovered it proved more economical by avoiding the clutch wear that manual cars would develop with usage between 18 and 24 hours a day. This police service represented perhaps the SP250's finest hour, a role where its performance mattered more than its appearance, and where its robust Turner V8 proved its reliability under the most demanding conditions. Despite ambitious plans, the SP250 proved a commercial disappointment. Daimler originally forecast sales of 1,500 units in the first year, followed by 3,000 per year in the second and third years of production, projections that assumed successful American market penetration. Reality proved far less encouraging. SP250 production ended in 1964 after only 2,654 cars across all variants, falling far short of even the conservative first-year estimate. The North American market, including Canada, absorbed approximately 40% of total production, but this represented a fraction of Daimler's hopes. The original launch price of £1,277 positioned the car competitively, but styling concerns and quality issues, particularly the notorious chassis flex of A-spec models, severely limited sales appeal. Most observers identify the controversial appearance as the primary reason for commercial failure, though the structural problems certainly did not help. The SP250 was the last car to be launched by Daimler before its parent company, the Birmingham Small Arms Company, sold the marque to Jaguar Cars in 1960. Jaguar's acquisition ultimately saved the SP250 through the B-spec chassis improvements, but Jaguar had little interest in continuing a model that competed with its own sports car offerings. Production continued until 1964, then quietly ceased. Today, the Daimler SP250 occupies an unusual place in automotive history. Condemned at birth as ugly, plagued by chassis flex, and commercially unsuccessful, it nevertheless represented genuine achievement. Britain's first production V8 sports car, a police pursuit vehicle capable of 130 miles per hour, and a car that delivered 120 miles per hour performance when most British sports cars struggled to reach 100. The mere 2,654 produced makes it genuinely rare, and surviving examples benefit from a fiberglass body that does not rust. Modern classic car enthusiasts have begun to appreciate the SP250's quirky character, Edward Turner's clever engineering, and the sheer oddity of its appearance. What once condemned it now makes it distinctive.